Anthony, and as you saw on the screen there's a stand outside where you can talk to Anthony a bit more about this. Now, we're very happy to have Seán Gallagher here with us. I know when you mention the name Seán Gallagher to me, I think I know him because I see him very often either on TV or in the newspaper. I actually passed him in one of the high-rise car parks the other day, and I was all ready to wave as if we were great friends, and then I thought, the guy hasn't a clue who I am. So I asked Seán to give me a little bit of background about himself. We all know him as an entrepreneur and as a business writer in the Sunday Independent, and we all benefit from those articles. He's the former CEO of Smart Homes Ireland, which is Ireland's largest home technology company. Founder and CEO of Clyde Real Estate, an investor in Dragon's Den. We've seen him on TV. Seán is from Cavan, and he's married to a lady from Cork, and they have 2 children, one 4 years of age and one just 5 months. What you might not know about him also is that he is a fitness instructor and is a black belt instructor in both karate and judo. So obviously a man that exercises on all levels. Today he's going to talk to us about the fact that in his experience, and as we know from the articles he's written from the Dragon's Den program, etc., he has a lot of experience of Irish businesses of all level. He's going to speak to us about the fact that success leaves clues, and hopefully we'll all take away something from that. Seán?
One, two. Can you hear me there? Thank you. Thanks, Roisin, so very much. Firstly, it is a great pleasure to be here this morning. I had the pleasure a number of years ago to speak at an LIA event, which I think was in the IMI in Sandyford, if anyone was there. And I was just listening to Anthony there, and if this commercial property real estate company I set up 3 years ago doesn't take off, I think I'll go into this insurance game and this financial brokers game. There's an art to what you're doing that I just love, and it's at the center of all businesses, and yet so many people don't respect it, and that is the art of selling, of developing relationships and providing a service which you have to sell. And I just love that passion, Anthony, you were talking about in terms of selling, because sales is about relationships. It's all about building relationships. We buy from people. We don't buy from organizations. And it's a skill that we have innately. And yet when I hired people in the past, there was a time in Smart Homes I had 75 staff and we had 10 sales guys traveling the country. None of them wanted to be called sales guys. They wanted to become business development managers, account executives. And yet it is all about selling. So I'm fired up now in the fact of selling. And of course, financial services is something we all need. And my own financial advisor is actually in the room, who has helped me with some of my personal finances, some of my policies, and has done stuff. And that's Geraldine Layden, if she's here. Are you here, Geraldine? Oh, she's popped out. She's there, is she? Super. Don't be shy. And so Geraldine, and unfortunately, because I'm involved in a number of different businesses, Geraldine has had to pursue me relentlessly occasionally. And sometimes we might think that's harassing a client. You're ringing them. Do they really want to speak to you? The truth of it is, I'm busy in a lot of things. I know I need the services that Geraldine is offering, and yet I have to be hounded in order to get to a stage because I have so many other priorities. And yet I know in my heart that I take Geraldine's call. Why? Because I know she is doing the taking care and the worrying of the stuff that I don't understand, and that I'm doing other things, and she persists, which is great. And I want to thank you, Geraldine, because you do a super, super job. So I want to talk a little bit about, and Roisin said about business and success leaves clues. Business is not rocket science, but it's hard work. And the first thing I want to say is that being in business for yourself is very isolating. And here's the thing. I know that most of you, some of you may have larger companies with lots of staff and admin and supports and hierarchy, and most of you maybe are not. Maybe some of you just work as an independent broker, or you have a small team of 2 or 3 or 5 people. But it's isolating, and here's the thing. Few people get it. You work on your own. You've got to get up every morning and get motivated. How many of you talk to yourselves? I talk to myself. How many of you talk to yourselves? Jesus, are afraid to admit it. How many of you don't? Well, you're liars. Because the truth of it is we all do. And every single morning, I got to make a decision when I get in my bed. What am I going to do today, and how motivated am I? Do I want to go to the office? Do I want to go meet people? What am I going to say? And because of the relationship, I have got to bring that fire to people. I've got to ignite them. I've got to excite them. I've got to interest them. And that's very difficult. And if the conversation in your head is negative, well, that's almost impossible to do. So we make a decision when we get out of the bed that we're going to be positive. And I know how isolating it is, because when things are not going well, you can't talk to your clients about your business is not going well, because that is not conveying the confidence and the comfort that they need to do business with you. You can't certainly talk to your bank manager if you're having challenges. You can't talk to even your competitors. And sometimes we don't even like talking to our spouses, if we're honest, about the fact that we don't have enough coming in, or we've lost a deal, or we've lost some money, and therefore because we don't want to worry them. And so we end up carrying a lot of this ourselves. And so today, I want to acknowledge that as brokers, as business people, we're a tribe. And tribes have to come together. That's how we survive. And in coming together, it is about finding comfort that whatever challenges you're facing, whether that's dealing with a mountain of regulation, if that's dealing with negativity, if that's dealing with competition, if that's dealing with technology, how do I embrace it? Should I know nothing about it? It's not who I am. It's not what I grew up with. I need to learn it, but it's so difficult. I don't want to admit it. I see other guys doing better than I am, doing different things, and this is not really me, and yet you can't share that. Well, the truth of it is, here's where you get to share it with people who are the same as you, who are facing the same challenges. And fundamentally, here's also what you get an opportunity in a day like today, is you get to learn from those around you. Not just from people who might be up here on the stage, but from people around you who are doing great things. What is somebody else doing that has been effective in their area, in Cork or Kerry or Mayo, that you could do in Dublin or Kildare or Wexford? What can we learn from others that we can implement ourselves? And so, as much as asking for other people's help, how can I help other people? And there's the circular flow of service. What you give out, you get back. So let's not be afraid to say, I'm struggling with this. What would you do? What have you done? Can you guide me? And Anthony is right about this thing about the learning piece. I'm a lifelong learner. I am committed to continuous and never-ending improvement and learning. The truth of it is, if you do not want to learn, nobody can help you. If you're determined to learn, nobody can stop you. And so we've got to come to everything we do with that state of readiness and preparedness to learn. I want to talk a little bit about business. I'm unapologetically a champion of small business. Why? I'll tell you why. Not about money. Yes, I'm doing fine, and yes, I've had my difficulties in the construction game many years ago as a subcontractor in the tech business into building. For me, business is not about money. Yes, you got to make a living, you got to provide for your family. The reason why I love business is because I was unemployed twice in the 80s and once in the early 90s. You can't understand what it's like to be unemployed unless you have first been unemployed. You don't just lose your job or your title. You don't even just lose your money. You lose your confidence, your sense of self-worth and dignity. And because you don't have a title and a job that you can say, this is what I do, your identity is challenged. And every time you meet people for the first time, what did you ask? What's your name? Where do you come from? And what do you do for a living? Well, when you can't answer that question, that is a fairly undermining of your confidence. And so I made a decision many years ago that I would never allow anybody else to be in charge or control of my job. I would control my own destiny. And I remember at the time thinking, what is it that I dislike most about being unemployed? And it was this. My greatest fear would be that this is as good as it ever gets. That I would never get, that's what Maslow calls self-actualization. I would never get to be the person I knew I was capable of becoming. And so, as most entrepreneurs, I don't think a lot about problems. I try and move to solutions. So for me, I'm committed to try and help job creation. So I don't focus on talking about unemployment. I talk about job creation. I want to encourage others, and that's part of the reason why I write in the Sun Independent, why I speak about business. Because to create more jobs, we need more entrepreneurs. That while we have large companies, and we can see what happens with the likes of Hewlett-Packard and others who pull out of areas, the real lifeblood of this country are people like yourselves, in every geographical area dispersed, who create your own job and indeed others. And by creating those jobs in dispersed areas, we keep the community alive, the school open, the local pub, the post office. We help the football team tug out their team. And so small and medium-sized businesses is the lifeblood, the very glue that holds our communities together. That's what drives me. And so at the heart of everything, when I talk to a business, whether it's investing or mentoring or helping, I always say, tell me what your why is. Because your why will get you up in the morning when you don't understand, or when you're feeling bad, or when something is happening with you. Why do you do what you do? And just on the mentoring session, I met some of the guys on the way in, and I was chatting to them. And one fellow said, would you spend an hour with me, or mentor me, or help me, or give me a bit of advice? So here's what I'm going to do is, the staff had just put up here a bowl. So there's a bowl up here. If you want to throw your business card in there, and at the end of the session or over lunch, I'll pick out a card or two, and I'll spend an hour or two with anybody who wants to talk about their own challenges, and who not necessarily wants to do it in a public forum. So I'm really happy to do that for you. Everybody has a mentor. The guys outside selling and servicing great photocopiers and printers and machines, by the way. We're interested in the fact that I have a mentor. I have a mentor in the States from the last 7 or 8 years, a guy called Jack Canfield, America's top coach, largest author of non-fiction books in the world, Chicken Soup for the Soul. So everybody needs a mentor. Every top sports person needs a coach and a mentor. We all do. You can't get to the next level if you don't have outside stimulus and feedback and honest feedback. But here's the thing is, I love business, and business can be tough. I said it's not rocket science. It's about having a product or a service. It's about believing in that. It's about going out and winning customers. It's about making money off the back of that, charging whatever commission or sales or price, and making sure that you have enough profit into that when you take out your costs. It's about making sure you collect your debt. If you're in a business where you're making something, it's about logistics and distribution. It's about protecting your IP if you have it and all that. And it's about reinventing yourself to stay relevant to the market. None of that's rocket science. But it's all difficult to do at the one time when everything else around you is changing in a dynamic market environment. But in all the stuff that I've been involved in, and all the businesses I've written about or studied or mentored, and I worked with the government before on the board of Intertrade Ireland, and I worked with enterprise boards for 5 years, training hundreds and mentoring hundreds of entrepreneurs. Here's the thing. Success in business has a lot less to do with education and intelligence, and much more to do with psychology. Business is a combination of a skill set and of a mindset. And the great thing about the skill set is it can be learned. And the great thing about the mindset is that it can be developed. What are the mindsets of the people who are really successful that I know and that I work with? One, they are positive by nature. They're optimistic. They're not worried about the future because they're creating it. They're not worried about what happens to them because it's their response to what happens is that they're in control of. We cannot determine the outcome of the things we do, but we can determine our response to them. There's a phenomenal attitude to a lot of people, is that they're passive recipients of life. I learned this in aged 18 working with an organization called Feroiga, the National Youth Organization. And it's this about self-determination. Life does not happen to you. It is, in fact, created by you. Our businesses don't happen. Our customers just don't happen. We create it. How do we create it? We create it with a vision in our mind. What do I want to achieve? What are my goals and what am I willing to do to get there? That mindset is what separates winners from those who are not as successful. How can you manage your mindset? It's that self-talk. It's also about what you read. Sometimes I'll say to people, how successful are you? You want to grow and develop your business. What are you reading? What's the book beside your locker at bed? What are you listening to in the car? Is it Joe Duffy? Are you listening to an audio book in terms of how to sell better? All of us need to continue to improve. Are you reading about successful business people? Are you reading about people who are leaders in your area? It's one of the reasons why I write in the Sunday Independent. If you want me to be great, you must first show me what great is. So when I was asked to write for the Sunday Independent, I said I will, but here's what I won't do. I'm not interested in writing an opinion about the global economy. It's all just theory. It's all intellectual stuff. I'm real practical. I have to see, feel, and touch and understand things. I said, I'll write about entrepreneurs, because if we want more jobs, we need more entrepreneurs. How do we get more entrepreneurs? We need to make business attractive, respectable. Years ago, being in business was you were a chancer, making a few pounds. Now it has to be about the role of the entrepreneur. I respect you more than you could imagine, probably more than you even respect yourselves, because small business isn't just about creating a job for yourself. You pay tax, and if you hire people, and anybody who starts a business, who hires people in the manufacture of their product or the delivery of their service, pays tax, VAT, capital gains tax, income tax. But when you hire staff, they pay tax. Half of their income goes to the government in tax. The other half of their disposable income goes to support other services, shops, bars, restaurants, clothes, everything within the local area that helps support other jobs. Collectively, that is the tax that runs the government, runs the country. So by what you do every day, and the companies you support and the people you support, you provide the tax that builds our schools for our young people, builds our hospitals for those who are sick, builds critical roads infrastructure, and provides the welfare for those who can't work or not able to find a job. We, the small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs of the country, we provide the blood, the finance, the tax that allows the entire public service to run. That's something that we should be acknowledged for. But if we're not going to get acknowledged for it externally, let's appreciate ourselves what exactly the contribution that you are making every single day. So I am unapologetically a believer in small and medium-sized business. But here's the other things. To be more successful, you want to develop that mindset. Be optimistic and be positive. You also want to take action. I'm surprised the number of people who sit back and react as opposed to take action. I grew up in a farming community in Cavan. There's an old adage that says, you will never plough a field by turning it over in your mind. Anthony talked about take these ideas and use them. So when you leave here, you should leave here not like all the other people who go to conferences. Go to the coffee. First thing you do is you go straight to people that you know. You haven't made any new contacts, learned anything. Go to people that you don't know. Introduce yourself. Get used to that whole thing about learning. Ask questions. Take action. A lot of people go home, they'll put the folder, and they'll put it on the shelf. What was that conference like? Grand. Before you leave today, write down on your notepad at least 3 things that you're going to do as a result of today. To phone somebody. Maybe it's to find a mentor. Maybe it's to join a group. Maybe it's to do what Anthony was talking about, millionaire group. Maybe it's to do a course. Maybe it's to sign up and do something in IT. Whatever it might be, find 3 things that you will action. And then what you should try and do to be successful, if you can't find a mentor, find what I call an accountability partner. Find somebody who will hold you accountable for those 3 things. Why do you think Uni Slim and Weight Watchers does well? Because people turn up every week and they're accountable to somebody when they're weighed in front of their peers. You're accountable, so you're thinking about, I better get this done. So is there somebody in your group, not necessarily here, but even in your group of business people around you in your home area, that you could say, let's talk once a week. Let's set some goals, and you hold me accountable, and at the end of the week we'll have a call or a 15-minute phone call or a cup of coffee and say, so tell me, Anthony, what did you do this week? Did you get those 3 things you committed to do done? And if not, why? How can we help you get those done? Roisin, how did you do? What were the 3 things you said you'd do? And we hold each other accountable honestly. That's how we progress. Learn to take action, set goals, goals that stretch us. Every single thing we want as human beings and as business people lies outside our comfort zone if we don't already have it. Everything we want that we don't already have, including success or more customers, is because it lies outside our comfort zone. If it was within our comfort zone, we'd have already done it. So the only way that we can grow is if we push beyond the skill set we have and the mindset we have, and we develop more and more. You cannot be a better business person unless you're a better developing person, manager, leader, salesperson. The other thing is about risk and failure. In Ireland, we are so adverse to risk. It's the way we were brought up. Don't make mistakes. Don't look foolish. So we don't take a risk. I say to young people in schools, that's the only thing you need to take in life are risks. Because we're born vibrant as kids. We take risks. We do everything. And if we survive that, then what happens is we're put into school, we're conditioned, don't step out from the group, be the same, fit in, and then we start, and that's it. So now we don't want to do anything different or dramatic or unique that might allow us to step out from the crowd. I say to everybody, step out from the crowd, because that's where your true success and your true being is. That's your self-actualization, not living somebody else's conditioning. So risk is that thing. A ship in the harbor is safe, but that is not where ships were built for. If there's something you want to do or try, you go and try it. Because the other piece is this thing about failure in Ireland. We're afraid to fail because, and I get that, because after the presidential election, journalists used to write about me, failed presidential candidate. I said, for the love of God, if you step up to the mark, you should be acknowledged and rewarded for making an effort. We've got to see, I don't read an awful lot other than my own articles. I don't read a lot of the press. Okay? Just as your body is what you put into it, so too is your mind. I don't read negative crap. I only read stuff that will make me more, that will give me more, that will allow me to grow more. So, and we have to be conscious even ourselves in terms of how you change that attitude around failure and risk. So there's a book called The Four Agreements, if you ever get a chance to read it. But one of them is, I'll give you 25% of it now, it's called Be Impeccable with Your Language. When people try, I ring people whose businesses go out of business or fail, or I send them a card and I said, fair play to you for trying. You created jobs, you created wealth, you've done things. Brilliant. Now what can you do next to learn from all of that? In America, investors in companies in Silicon Valley, they invest in people a second and third time. Why? Because failure is seen as a badge of honor, a stepping stone on your way to ultimate success. It's an apprenticeship. Here in Ireland, somebody fails, we beat them up forever, and everybody talks about it. So I'd encourage you not to talk about failure in that regard. I'd encourage you also to be more positive in your language. Here, I go back and forth to the States a good bit. You talk to people in the States, how is it going? Awesome, man. Everything's awesome, brilliant, super. I'm out there, I'm winning business, this is great. You arrive home in Ireland, you get out the plane, you get into a taxi heading for Dublin. How is it going? No, it's not too bad. Sure, I'm alive. The weather's awful. Jesus, did you hear what's going on in the state of the country? Wait till I tell you what we should do with this country. That's what you get. We need to stop all of that. We need to take control of all of that and be much more positive. Find people to hang around with who are as committed to their personal and their professional development as you are. Jim Rohn, great speaker many years ago, had a great saying. I adopt it, I love it, I believe in it. You're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. You're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. When I was growing up, my father used to say at Simmery, he'd say, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. So I could almost guarantee if I was to pick one of you out and I was to look at your friends and I put the 5 people that you spend most time with, business acquaintances, whatever it might be, I could tell you what your values are because we hang around with people of the same values. I could almost tell you what your financial net worth is because we normally hang around with people who are roughly the same net worth. So if you want to go to the next level, if you want to perform or outperform where you are now, you need to go and seek out people who are more successful, who are more driven, who are more in a particular area that you, whether it's technology or it's whatever it might be. Go find people who will, when you want to play soccer in first division, you don't go down and kick around in the local football club. You get on a team, you get into an academy, you surround yourself with people, and collectively that brings up your skill set. It also changes your mindset. When I started out a number of years ago, the idea of making X amount of money was great. Then I started hanging around with guys who make millions, hundreds of millions. And then my mindset, because you do a deal and they tell you about the deal and you go, oh, that's achievable and doable. Why? Because I know this guy, and truthfully, he's not that much brighter than I am. So we began to get a new normal. So how can you raise your new normal? By being surrounded by people who are more successful and who are committed to that same level of professional personal development. So here's the key thing too. When I look at the challenges that business have, and I'm a great believer, I'm very practical. While I'm optimistic, I'm grounded in practicality. I think there's a couple of things that businesses are struggling with. Change, strategy, innovation, all of these things. Leadership. For ourselves, leadership isn't just about leading a big team, it's about leading yourself, and it's about perseverance. So I want to share with you maybe one or two things. Change is the hardest thing for most of us. It is, because we get comfortable. And change really disrupts us, and it makes us nervous, and it makes us fearful. I've just managed to get on top of whatever I'm doing. Now it's changing. And I'm uncomfortable, and I'm fearful. So how do I deal with change? And Charles Darwin, who brought us the theory of evolution, he said it incredibly well when he said, in evolution, the species that survives is not usually the most intelligent or even the strongest. It is those who are most adaptable to change. And if you imagine what the changes are, we're living a time of unprecedented change from any other generation. Think of technology, the mobile phone, the internet, how that has changed life. Now, if you didn't roll and adapt with that, and you didn't have a mobile phone, and you didn't have internet, you're going to be left behind. Globalization comes in, and all these key influencers. Google. Sure, 30 seconds, Google it. We have access to so much information. Change and technology has driven that. It's also driven how we do business. There are whole companies now who have their staff working from home part-time. Skype calls, everything that you can imagine about how we work. Also in terms of how jobs now are being broken up. So you have contract, you have mobile staff, you have portfolio lifestyle. So you might be doing some brokerage, you might have a bit of property, you might be doing something else. So it's changed. Technology has just changed how we do what we do. And if you think fundamentally, I often talk to kids in schools to try and encourage them, and I say, you need to think differently. Don't think about getting a job as an architect or an accountant. Think about the skills, because the jobs will change, but the skill set won't. It'll develop, and you have to make yourself relevant to the market at that time. Think of architects who became unemployed in the downturn. If they stayed and said, well, I'm an unemployed architect, I used to say, no, you're not. You're a person who has skills in design and, spatial stuff and whatever. And you can become a product designer. You can become a website designer. You can become whatever you want to be using those skills. Apply them to the needs of the market rather than what was there at the time. But I often say to kids, you think back 20, 30 years ago, there was no mobile phone, there was no internet. Think of all the jobs now in the country. Think of all the jobs being announced in the last year or two in Dublin that didn't exist when you and I were growing up. So imagine what I say to the kids. In 20 years' time, you guys will be working in jobs that are not yet developed. Most likely in industries not even yet conceived. That's the pace of change. And if you don't believe me, think of this. Think of three things. The largest provider of content in the world, online, doesn't write a single word of it. And that's Facebook. They provide the platform. The largest provider of transport services in the world doesn't even own a single car or bus. It's called Uber, to create the platform for other people to do it. Think of the largest provider of accommodation, bed nights in the world. doesn't own a single apartment, and that's Airbnb. So technology has changed how we do business, how we as consumers buy, and how we do business. I'll always check, before I do business with anybody, I'll always check a website. I'll even look to see if there's a picture up there, what they look like. I had this conversation I was sharing with Audrey. A number of years ago, I was invited to speak to 500 dentists at their conference in Galway. And I hate dentists. Never had any good experiences with them. And they fleece you. It's always too late when their tool is in their mouth. It's too hard. It's too late to be saying, so what's this costing me? And when they asked me to talk to them about their sector, and their sector was struggling. And you say, why did it struggle? Because a regulation change came in, or a tax change, the whole PRSI thing. And some of them had lost 60% of their turnover. And they were struggling. And I said, well, I have a feeling I know what the problem is. And they said, what is it? And I said, well, tell me what you do. So if I was to ask anybody in this room, what do you do for a living? What would you say? Throw it out to me. What do you do? Financial advisor. You're a financial advisor. Anybody else? If I meet you in a pub and I say, what do you do for a living? Sales. I'm in sales. Okay. And anybody else? Give me one more. Financial what? Financial planning and guidance. That would end the conversation in the pub for sure. I know what I'd say as a Cavan man. Financial planning, go to the bar and buy me a pint. Okay, we had one more over here, but thank you. Money. I'm there already, money. So here's the thing. I asked the dentist, you know what they said? We're in the medical profession. They talked about we wear white coats and we've got a big certificate up on the wall. And that's what differentiates us from other people. And I said, you guys really need to get over yourselves. And they said, what's that? And I said, well, let me tell you a little story. You know what you remind me of as the dentist? I said, you remind me of the group of electricians I spoke to last week. And Jesus, they were disgusted. And they said, why is that? I said, well, tell you what, because I had all these staff and we had outsourced a lot of our technology stuff, installing stuff, and we outsourced it to electricians. So I had an opportunity to train hundreds of electricians. And I thought I'd train them in smart homes, modern technology for 2 days. But I ended up having to outsource the work to them. I spent 2 days on the technology and 2 days on the business side because I couldn't understand their mentality. I said to them when they came in, I said, so tell me, what do you do for a living? They said, well, we're tradespeople. And I said, are you? And I said, what comes with all of that? And tradespeople. And I said, geez, I really don't see you as that. And they said, what do you see us as? Well, let me tease this through. So, do you provide a service? Yeah. Do you charge for that? And in their case, they bought some materials and stuff. Do you have staff? Some of them did, yeah. Do you pay wages? Do you have to collect all of that? Do you manage your money? Yeah. Do you have a brand? Do you have to promote yourself? Yeah. Geez, I said, to me, you look like a small business. And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I don't consider you a tradesperson or tradesman. I consider you like an electrician. I don't consider you an electrician. I consider you a small business owner that provides electrical services. I said, do you understand the mentality change that you've just had? And they said, what? I said, because you're an electrician, and the only thing you know is who trained you, because you were all trained in apprenticeships. So that's the reason why half of you don't dress properly. You never turn up on time. Never. You'll tell me you'll be here next Saturday, but you didn't tell me which Saturday. You'll go in and put a bit into 5 different houses so you get the jobs, and then it's whoever shouts loudest. And when my house is done, do you ever come back and say thanks for the work? Would you come back a month after the job is done just to see if there's anything bulbs need fixing? No, because that's all you know, because you consider yourself a tradesman. If you were a business person, you would think differently. And guess what? Now that the downturn has come, you're sitting in your van with your few receipts, invoices stuck down the front dashboard, waiting for the phone to ring. And guess what? The phone isn't ringing. And you don't have any tools in your toolbox to respond to this change. Why? Because you think you're a tradesman. Try thinking about yourself as a business owner. So I said, how many of you have email addresses of all the people you've worked with? Why don't you email all of them and see do they need work done? Because they'll probably think you won't come now because you only want to do big houses. You don't want to do a bit of an extension or fix a few bulbs or put a light over a bed or whatever it might be. I said, when did you tell them about the new service of solar panels or something they could put up to help save money, or new energy reducing bulbs or LED lights? Because people would like to know, to be educated about what's new in the market. I'd like to buy that. I'd like to maybe reduce the cost of running my home. No, you're waiting for them to ring you, but they don't even know that you know that there's solar panels out there, and they don't want to ring you because they haven't an idea. Do you do it? So why aren't you educating your customers? And you should know that it's cheaper and easier to keep a customer than it is to try and find a new customer. So now you're out trying to find new business, but you're not really upselling to the ones you do have. And have you ever, at the end, when you finished a job, arrived with a bottle of wine and a card to wish people well in their new homes? No, you haven't, because your mindset is stuck with whoever trained you as an apprenticeship. You haven't developed your mindset to drive yourself forward as a business. So when you get up in the morning, not to see yourself as a financial broker or salesperson, but a business owner that delivers important, valuable services that people need, that happen to be in this. So I said to the dentist, now do you get it? Some of them started to wake up. I said, when was the last time you emailed people to come in to look at new services? When was the last time you went out, instead of trying to sell, go and educate the market? When was the last time you went to a school to teach kids about dental health and hygiene and what was good for you, not to be drinking Coke and whatever else it is? Do you know rightly that what would happen is all those kids would go back to their mummies and daddies and say, I should go for a dental checkup, mum? And I'd have a different attitude to a dentist because they care, they're trying to educate me. No, you're going to sit there and wait until the poor child comes in and frighten the life out of them and charge their mother and father a fortune of money. How many of you have a website that actually puts your prices up there? No, because you don't want to tell me. Why? Because it's beneath you. Because you're a medical professional. Brilliant. Well, I like to check out where I'm going to see what services and how much money I need to give you out of my bank account that keeps you alive. Do you get where I'm going? They said, yeah. And I said, just when I'm at it, let me drive this home. You guys operate sort of like 9 to 5-ish, whatever else is. Guess what? I work 9 to 5. So do you ever think of doing something like a little bit more customer focused? So I fast track 2 years later and get a phone call from a friend of mine, Cahill, on a Sunday, and he's talking a bit garbled. And I said, what's wrong? I was down at the dentist. And I said, dentists don't open on a Sunday, Cahill. He says, I'm down here on the Navan Road, and I saw they were advertising. So he said, I was working busy the week, so I went down to the end to get a tooth filled or whatever it was. And he said, I just happened to be in the dentist practice, and there was a young dentist there, and I said to him, how come you're open on a Sunday? And he said, well, you know, I cover this week and somebody else covers another week. And but the owner of the dental practice, he was at a conference 2 years ago in Galway. He's open on a Saturday and Sunday. He's getting business. I remember turning up in Dundalk one day in 1995 when I went up to work in Dundalk. And I remember having to go to a meeting, and whatever I had done, I'd spilled coffee down my shirt. Now everywhere I go, I have a spare shirt in the car. Lesson learned. There's no such thing as mistakes, only feedback and learning. But anyway, I went and went down to town at 1 o'clock. I drive down Wednesday, whatever day it was, to get a shirt, go to the shop, closed for lunch. This is what, 15, 18 years ago. And you know what really upset me? Not just it was closed, but there was a lassie inside eating a sandwich. And I'm going, I'm here, I have a short requirement, you have loads of them, I have money, you would like it, and your lunch and that door is in my way. And she didn't get my money, and I thought, if you don't understand from a consumer's point of view how we consume, how do I think, what's my needs, when do I need it, and you need to be available to supply it. If you do that and you do it well, you do great business. I have no idea of time. What, is that 2 minutes 47 I have? It is. Oh, I better talk fast because it's ticking down. Okay, so here's the thing. I want to share 1 or 2 little stories with you about things. Change. I want to talk about change, challenge, strategy. So one of the most interesting stories I wrote was a guy that you probably never heard of. Many people here ever heard of Dave Bobbitt? Right, no. Here's the thing. I didn't either, but I wrote his story. I was very impressed. Talks about challenge. Dave Bobbitt worked his way up to a company called H&K International, not the sexiest business in the world. Made stainless steel kitchens for fast food restaurants. McDonald's was their biggest customer. 2002, he worked his way up and he led a management buyout. All the money he had down, 1 or 2 key staff, all the money down. 10 days later, McDonald's sent them a letter saying, thank you very much for your business. We're not doing any new restaurants. They only did new restaurants, supplied new restaurants, fit-outs. We are going to consolidate our business, so we don't need you anymore. Thank you very much. 85% of his business gone overnight, 10 days. You would look into the abyss and you would go, this is over, I'm done. Sometimes in adversity, it introduces us to our best selves. He went back and he let go 90 staff, almost all the staff. And then he pulled the team around that was left and he said, right, we need to come up with a new solution. Most people would probably just packed up and gone home. How would you ever come back from that? But when I was studying youth work and community development years ago, there was a great adage. If you bring people around together, people support best that which they help to create. So he put his team around, he came up with an idea. Let's do existing restaurants because there's more of them. Let's not just supply equipment, but let's service it. And we know that if we're going to fit out or refurb a restaurant, they don't just need this. They need the design, supply, logistics, the entire design right through. And they rejigged their business. They had to learn new skills. They had to find some more staff. They had to look at the whole thing. They had to go out to their customers and say, what do you want and how can I give it to you, whatever. That was in 2002. I interviewed Dave in 2012, 10 years later. That year, he went from having just McDonald's. He had Burger King, Pret a Manger, Subway, all of them you could imagine, Kentucky Fried Chicken. That year, he installed 20,000 kitchens across 80 countries. He was employing 1,500 staff directly and 300 contractors. That year, he made 380 million. That's change management. It's also good leadership. And sometimes people say about leadership, that leadership is about doing things right. It's not. There's a difference between managing and leading. Management is about doing things right. But leadership is about doing the right things. So you can continue to do the thing you're doing all the time and do it right. But unless you're doing the right things, what is it that you need to do to get your business to the next level? What other one would I tell you? I'll tell you a quick one about, I'm conscious of time, I'll tell you a quick one about a very simple entrepreneur who's very successful, a guy called Paddy Matthews. Matthews Coaches. If you're ever up on the East Coast, up and down every 15, 20 minutes, up and down Dundalk Drogheda, Coaches. Paddy wouldn't be your typical entrepreneur. He left school early. He became a truck driver. He went on the continent. He went from 9 stone to 18 stone, damaged his whole back, just unhealthy living. And as he would say himself, he was on the sick for 6 years. And his next door neighbour up the road, Paddy had 6 children. 3 of them I think were his own and 3 were fostered. And so he didn't have enough room in the car to bring them all to Sunday Mass. Somebody up the road had a minibus they were selling, getting out of it. Paddy bought the minibus. A couple of months later, local football team, minor team, said to Paddy, would you take us to a match? So we jammed them all into the minibus. Started to do this regularly. Next thing is the senior team said, geez, if you had a bigger bus, Paddy, you could take us. So Paddy got a bigger bus. Paddy now has 40 buses. He's now got a heap of buses going to America, taking tours in. But Paddy had a very simple thing when he wanted to be, I'm going to talk to you about strategy for a minute. Paddy wanted to set the strategy to be the greenest eco company transport company on the island. So he would often invested a fortune of money in technology, new equipment for the buses. And that didn't get him to where he wanted to get, because it was good and all that. But drivers' behaviour, they still sped too fast and slowed down, and that was confusing consumption. So Paddy did something very sensible. He knew the same distance to Dublin, it was the same distance in every trip, and roughly the same time, ideally. And so Paddy put up what he did was a leadership board for the consumption of fuel. So remember what his strategy was. He wanted to be more efficient, more green, which meant driving down the use of fuel. Paddy put a leadership board up, and the amount of fuel consumed by each driver every week was put up. And then the drivers competed to see who is the best. And attached to that was a reward or bonus for those who were the most successful. What did he do? He took a strategy that none of the drivers really cared about, and he converted that into a reward for the very behavior he wanted to establish. for a guy who never went to college, never did an MBA, never studied strategy. That to me is mighty common sense. So in our businesses, what can we do to take a higher level strategy, and if we have staff, apply it to them? Sometimes we think we have a strategy, but we don't convey that to people, therefore we don't have a strategy. Survival used to be the strategy for the last number of years. Thankfully, we're coming out now. It's a bit like the downturn. I often equate it to be like in a commercial, the commercial equivalent of an A&E department. Most of us were losing money. We had too many staff. We were spending too much money. We cut the blood flow, stabilized the patient or the business. But now it's into rehab and development. And the challenge that now is when I ask people is, so how are you going to now grow your business, win new customers? I said, what's your strategy? And they look at me. And I said, if you don't have a strategy, how do you set goals to get to where you need to go to? How do you convey that to people around you if you have a team? And they said, well, we're hoping that things will pick up, the economy will pick up, Brexit will get sorted, somebody will shoot Trump or something, whatever it might be. But whatever could be. And all of that is great. But I say to people, hope is great. Without it, you won't get up in the morning. Hope is not a strategy. It's back to the idea of being in control, of setting the agenda, that life doesn't happen to you. It's in fact created by you. Set your strategy, skills, adapt to change, understand technology, be innovative, and most importantly is to persevere. I love business. I don't think there's anything that's more inspiring to get you out of bed in the morning to have your own business with the risk and the fear that goes with that, but you are alive. The number of people I meet who are not alive. If you love what you do, if you do what you love, people will love what you do. If you love this area and you believe in providing these services to people and you think they have a genuine need and you believe that you're the person to provide that and educate them, sell to them, manage them, make their life more easier like Geraldine is doing for me, then you get up and go out proudly and do that. And do that with a passion to be the best that you can be. If you do that, you will be successful. Learn the skills you need to learn. Develop the mindset you need to develop. Pull a group around you who are committed to their personal and professional development. Think positively. Only read and write and only read and take in and watch programs, stuff that will help develop you. Do all of that and you will be incredibly successful, and build a network around you, most importantly. If you can find a mentor, accountability partner, or what I call a mastermind group, where you meet in small groups to support each other, all the better. I think success does leave clue. It's not rocket science, but there's a path. There are characteristics and there are actions that successful people take. If you take those, you too will be incredibly successful. I wish you all the success. I'm delighted to have had the opportunity to speak to you. I wish you all well. Please do throw your card up here. I'm happy to spend an hour and a half with somebody, or one or two people over the next couple of weeks, and throw them up here and we'll collect them and we'll do that. And I wish you absolutely well. Thank you.
I hope you're staying around for a little bit over lunch with us. Great, great. Well said. Just a reminder that all of these presentations will be on the PIBA website for you to download. They'll be up by Monday, so you can go back over a lot of it there. We're going to have our buffet lunch now, and we're supposed to, at 1:45, start into the 3 different sessions. The first one is financial planning following a relationship breakdown. Second one is taxation on acquiring a brokerage. And the third one is new trends and best practices for social selling success in 2017. As I said, they'll all run concurrently at 30 minutes ago, with 5 minutes in between to get from one to the other. So try and make sure that you get the 3 of them. As I said, they're always the ones that people talk about afterwards. Enjoy your lunch and do get around to the exhibitions as well, and don't forget the business card into the bowl here. Okay.